Matt Paxton, Hoarders, Legacy List, and more. We're talking about it today. I am Angie Graham, and we have Matt Paxton today in the studio. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you here. Matt is one of the top downsizing and decluttering experts in the world. He is the host of 2 Emmy Award-nominated series, The Hoarders, for 15 seasons, and The Legacy List, currently on PBS. He is the author of The Secret Lives of Hoarders, and Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. He is the founder of Clutter Cleaners and is also a husband and father of 7. And you also are a speaker.
Yes.
Which is how
we're here. Yeah,
that's how we got here. We're really excited to have you here, and you're going to be speaking at our meeting tomorrow. It's going to be such a treat for our management team. But how you ended up here, we're going to start with Haley and talk about how the day that she came into my office talking about 500 miles an hour and said, oh my God, we got to do this legacy thing. So I'm going to turn it over to Haley, and she can give our listeners and our audience some background.
I attended SMASH, which is the marketing conference for senior living, is nationwide in 2023. And you were a keynote speaker there. And I remember there was a lot of hype about you being there. Like, everybody's talking about the guy from Hoarders.
And I was on fire. Like, I'm a good speaker, but like, it was one of those moments where you're out of body. You're like, I'm killing it, man. And I killed it. Like, it was probably the best speech I've ever done, honestly.
Yeah, and I remember after your speech, I turned to my coworker who was there with me, and I go, we're doing this. And I waited about, I want to say it was like a week before I saw Angie again, and I like ran into her office, and I'm like, oh my God, I have this great idea. We need to do it. And we had talked previously about doing a bucket list, but I thought that there was something else that we could add to it, and I was like, I think the legacy part of it would just be perfect. It would complete it, and we've been doing it, and we've gotten to do a lot of great things for our residents and their families.
So she comes running in my office, and she goes, are you okay if I contact Matt Paxton? And I'm like, we got to do this legacy thing. And I'm trying to understand what she's talking about. She's going 100 miles an hour. So there was really some inspiration that you had given this girl. And one thing with my team is, when they have creative things and they're passionate about something, your team is what makes me. Yeah. And I thought, if she is this excited, I thought he was just a guy that cleans houses, but maybe he knows something that I don't. I'm definitely.
I have a unique opportunity where I've been doing this this year will be 25 years. I've been helping people clean out their houses for 25 years, and 20 of it was hoarders. And so I've probably been in the most hoarded houses, and I've been in the most, downsized houses than anyone else. And I just get to see, what's going on. And for me, at the end of the day, after 20 years, I said, okay, hey, this is really about the stories. It's never about the stuff, like, ever. Mm-hmm. And so I got super detailed. Why do people hoard? And got all into the psychology and the trauma and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, it was like, okay, we hold on to stuff because we love the people that this stuff represents. And I noticed I just told stories of my whole career, and people told me stories. I have thousands of stories from all these amazing women that we helped clean. And I think that was the goal of that speech, was like, okay, hey, how do we really listen to our clients? How do we listen to our prospects and hear their stories? And I absolutely challenged everyone on that stage. It was probably 600 people in the room.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, represent the top 100 communities in the U.S. And I said, hey, you guys got to go back and really include legacy in how you interact with your clients. If you're doing home visits, if you're, prospecting, marketing, take it across the board. Crickets. Nobody, everyone's like, that was a great speech. It was really fun. But nobody was like, this is how we're going to interact with it, and this is how we're going to implement it, except you guys.
So it's funny because we were at another conference, and she had brought up bringing somebody from the outside to be a guest speaker. And I'm immediately like, Matt Paxton, let's bring him on. And she goes, well, I was thinking, people more local. And I'm like, well, I'm still going to reach out to him.
Well, that's how I got on Hoarders. This is a funny story. I reached out. There was a guy named Peter Walsh who, Peter Walsh was Oprah's guy. And I was just cleaning houses, like privately in Virginia. And I think I was making like $15 an hour. But I would get a hug at the end of every job. So I'd get a big hug, and then they'd hand me a check. And I was like, people are crying and then giving me money. I was like, that's special, right? I was like, that doesn't happen in every job. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I was like, I got to get on TV somewhere. And I didn't know how to get on TV. And Hoarders hadn't come out yet. And I didn't know anything about it. And I just wrote everybody I knew. And I saw Peter Walsh on Oprah, like back when Oprah was everything, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was like everything. And I was like, well, I might as well write this guy. Why not? And I wrote him every week for a year before he responded. And finally his agent responded. I was like, dude, stop emailing us. We're not going to. It was an AOL account, if that tells you how long ago it was. And I was like, if you give me 5 minutes, I'll stop emailing you. And then within 3 minutes, my phone rang. And he's like, Peter Walsh, what can I do for you? And I'm like, hey, oh my gosh, thanks for calling, dude. And we ended up talking. And we ended up, hey, he's like, if you're ever in LA, let's get together. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I'm going to be in LA next week. And I had no money. I was not going to be in LA. And I used my last $500 to fly from Washington, D.C. to LA to meet with Peter Walsh. We met. He's like, we should definitely do something. And I thought he really meant it. I didn't know that that's just what people from Hollywood say. And I flew back and I was like, I told my wife, I was like, we're going to change my life. This is it. We're finally going to make it. And then never heard from him again. And then a year later, they asked him to do Hoarders. And he's like, I can't do it, but there's this crazy guy in Virginia that'll do anything. And so they called me. But at the end of the day, you never know. Why not? You never know what'll happen.
That's right.
You should always reach out.
Share with Matt some of our best legacy stories that we've done.
I think my favorite is there's a gentleman living in our memory care up in Rice Lake. He used to be a police officer for the police department for 20, 30 years. Yeah. And he retired with them. He had to be removed from his home by the police and brought to live with us. And
it adds up.
he was able to go on a ride along with a police officer, and his family was just like, you changed the last memory we remember of him, involvement with the police, and turned it into such a positive thing. And
that's so cool.
And he went out on a ride for a few hours, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was,
Well, somehow I got one of the videos you guys did. Yeah. Somebody sent it to my agent, or someone sent it to me. And so for those that don't know, Legacy List is just a list of the top 5 most important things in your house. And a lot of people have a hard time telling stories. I want to hear the stories about it. A lot of people have a hard time telling the stories. And so I do these things called story starters. And it's to really help you get to what your legacy is. But it starts what was your first car? Who was your first partner? What was your first job? Just basic questions. They can answer things. And then you guys, from what I hear, you guys are the ones that add, and I've added it now to my story starters. You added what's the most significant invention in your lifetime? Mm-hmm. And so I've added that to my list now because of y'all.
Oh, that's great.
And the answer, there was some lady and she said hair curlers.
Yes.
And I thought that was the coolest. She was like, space is pretty interesting, but hair curlers. I'm going to go with hair curlers. And I was like, yeah, I guess for that person, why not? You never know. But it's fun. Y'all have really run with it. It got back to me pretty quick.
Yeah.
We had a lady that she wanted to do a food drive.
That was the same lady we're talking about. Yeah, that was her. That was her. So I love what you guys have done, which is add the bucket list. Mm-hmm. That's something I'm trying to get people to do now, and I need to make sure I give you guys credit for it, because that really does complete the circle.
Yes.
It's one thing to have a dream and to have memories, but then to actually provide action at end of life with it. That's really, really cool.
We just had a lady go up in a hot air balloon.
God.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
We're in this room talking about this, and really thanks to you for bringing the idea to us. So many seniors are having these moments. And that started with that talk that you had that then translated into an idea of how we could use that. So you really have impacted our organization and the seniors that live with us. So
Yeah, but y'all,
thank you for that.
Y'all took it and ran with it. I mean,
did.
like that's the coolest part. Like,
Well, we run 25 Facebook pages. We're always trying to come up with something new to do.
well, I mean, you did it, and it sounds like it's working. I just think it's super cool. That's one thing I'm at my career now. It's like, okay, I'm good. Like, I can pay for my kids to eat, so I'm happy, right? Like, I'm never going to be rich, but I'm never going to be poor, so life is good. And my kids are housed and fed, so everything's good. But, like, now I get to, like, we had a group in San Francisco that did a legacy list night, and it was a room of people that I call them end of life. They were basically the last person in their family tree. And they all felt alone, and they all felt like no one cared about their story. So they would say, we love your theory, Matt. We love the legacy list. We love all this stuff, but nobody cares about my stories, and I have no family left. And so the community was just like, hey, everyone that feels that way, we're going to do an adult show and tell. And like 60 residents showed up because they felt like they were alone and nobody cared. And they didn't have anyone to share the stories with. And so people got up there and they learned their lesson, keep it to 3 minutes. They did not do that the first night, put a time limit on it. But they basically did an adult show and tell. And now they do it quarterly. And people are coming from the community just to hear the stories.
Yeah.
I just think that's so cool.
That's great. There's a whole, when you think about the people that in interacting with the elderly, it's a whole generation of experiences and knowledge and wealth of information and just so much.
Yeah.
I mean, in the years, I've been here 16 years with the organization, and in those years, I've met some incredible people. I met a woman that was on the cover of Vogue magazine in 1950. She was in acting class with Marilyn Monroe. So, you never know.
I mean, the math on that, you'd be like, I got to verify that. Like, is that even possible? I mean, it is.
We found her. I actually went out, found the magazine. She had a portfolio there, and she was a Cabana girl. She came from Brazil, and her accent was too heavy. They wanted to put her in film, but she ended up being a model. And
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
God.
So we had the author of The Red Fern Grows. Yeah. We had one of Muhammad Ali's coaches. So you never know. Yeah. And here we are in Wisconsin. People don't you never know who's going to walk through the doors. Yeah. But even the teachers and the farmers and the people that have raised families and their children, they all have stories to tell.
Yeah, I always say when I started cleaning houses, I would ask the person, what did you do during the war? And we're talking about World War II. So 25 years ago, that was my number one question, is how it get started. And they would tell me. And we would just start kind of sorting when we're doing it. And now I'm like, did you go to Woodstock? Which is entirely different.
What was that
answers. Like? I've had a lot of people that went. They're like, oh yeah, it was kind of fun. I don't remember. I did have one guy that he goes, I didn't get to go. I was working at Summer Stock, and this guy, we were doing the interviews, and it kind of all spun off of because you don't realize you actually did affect me because you did reach out right away, and so I wasn't sure if that speech was going to hit or not, and I didn't really hear anything. And so I was starting to think, like, it was a bust. Like, I did good in the room that day, but I was like, it's not actually going to change anyone's life. And so I had kind of, like, started to think, well, all right, back to the drawing board.
You should have heard her.
When you reached out, like, I was like, and then you guys backed up and I saw that video. And I was like, this is real. Like, this is going to help people. And so that made me double down and actually go with it.
Yeah, you should have heard her squealing from her office when you guys returned her email. I thought at first something was wrong.
Well, that was AI. I hate to burst her bubble. That was AI. It wasn't actually me who responded.
I called my coworker who was at the conference with me, and I was like, Matt responded, and she's like, Matt who?
Yeah, I'm the perfect level of famous. Nobody knows unless they know, right? And if it benefits me, but I just love that you guys took. I mean, I don't think you give that enough. That's obviously part of your leadership. Because that's not normal. Some people say, that's a great idea, and then nothing happens. That's normally how it goes. But not only did you guys, like, your team rolls with it, but, I mean, you really blew it up in a positive way. And now it's actually, I mean, the fact that you're doing bucket lists with people, like, that's incredible. I think it's amazing. I just love it.
That's a whole nother show, Matt. We need to talk about that.
I've pitched that show 100 different ways. Nobody wants to do bucket lists. Really? I had a whole show. I pitched a whole show, and I was like, this show's going to be, like, incredible. It was called Before I Go. And I was going to take a terminally ill person on their last bucket list. And then I would ask them at the end of the trip, hey, man, before you go, what do you want the world to know? One question.
Yeah.
And then you would meet with the family after the person had passed away. And I was like, this is a home run. Like, it's going to be an incredible show. I was like, people are going to fight over this show. It's going to be so successful. Man, 30 networks turned it down. Nobody wanted it.
Nobody wants it, huh?
Nobody wants it. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is the best thing you could do.
We've done that through the years, and now we're doing it a lot more intentionally with the legacy part of it. But we've put 93-year-old women, in Harley side carts because her last wish was she'd never rode in a motorcycle, and she wanted to go in a Harley, and we made that happen.
I mean, that's my dream, is to do that. The content you guys are already doing, which I think is super cool.
They have, there's so many stories to be told just within our buildings, tons and tons.
The stories in the walls of these communities are, I will argue there's probably never, like, these people remember when there were no computers. They remember there were no cars. They remember, you think about what they went through, the war. I had one lady, I was talking to her, and I realized she had a little tattoo on her wrist, and it took me a second. I was like, oh my God, she was in the Holocaust. And I got to talk to her about it, and I said, do I have permission to ask you? And she was happy to answer questions. And I always like to ask, was there anything, I hear a lot of trauma stories, and I'm like, was there anything good in it? She goes, oh yeah, I met my husband on the boat. She goes, I met my husband going to Ellis Island.
Wow.
And she goes, and we were married 50-some years. And it was like, and she found the positivity, coming out of Auschwitz, which was like crazy. And but it amazes me what that generation has seen. And that question, I think it was you that one of y'all asked that question, what innovation or invention have you seen in your lifetime? I grabbed that question because it really is amazing. Like, I asked one lady, and she's like, well, bath, like an indoor bathroom. She's like, I was 18 before I got to go to the bathroom inside. And you're just like,
the things we take for granted.
I don't even let my 14-year-old pour his own milk, And it's like, and this lady is like, I think working in the field. She was in Oklahoma. It was fascinating, but I was just like, man, like the stories they've seen. And so, yeah, I think it's, it's our opportunity and our obligation to get them to tell those stories.
So you started out with Hoarders.
I did.
Was your
So
beginning.
I cleaned my real origin story, when I look up here, is I remember why you started. When I was 23, I went to college to be an economist, believe it or not, and I was an economist for the Federal Reserve, and I hated it. And then I went to Caesar's Palace, and I was an economist for Caesar's Palace Casinos in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, and that was awesome. It was too awesome. I was a kid living on the 7th floor of Caesar's Palace, got into a lot of trouble, came home. My dad got sick that summer, happened to get cancer, and then over the next year and a half, my dad, my stepdad, both my grandfathers all passed away. And so I had to clean out all their houses. And so very simply, I know you'll agree with this, like, my grandfather always said to me, if something sucks, do it as a job. Because other people pay to do it. Because they don't want to do it. And it was like, after like the third house, I was like, this is what he's talking about. And I started volunteering at a grief camp. It's this camp called Comfort Zone Camp, and it's a grief camp for kids that have lost their parents. So that's how I dealt with my grief and my loss. So I was cleaning houses during the week, doing these like 10-year-old grief camps, guys that had lost their dads. And my job was just to be fun dad, fun older brother, basically, and get them to go to therapy, trick them into therapy with fun. And it was an awesome camp, and I did it for like 2 years. But the whole time, for 2 years, I didn't realize I was figuring out what my cleaning style is. And it was having fun, telling stories, and then I would go home and I would help these old ladies that had the same losses that these 10-year-olds had. And so I was doing this like grief clean-out journey, and I had no clue what was happening. I just was trying to survive and make enough money to buy beer on the weekend. And, it was such a simple survival story for me, but I didn't realize that for 2 years I was building what would end up being my system over the next 20 years. And so I'm very lucky. To know at 25 that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Like, most people don't get that till 40 or maybe 50, And then I'd get the hug and a check, and I was like, okay, this is special. And so I did it for 10 years. I just did and I got on Hoarders, did Hoarders I did Hoarders for 16 seasons. But started my clutter cleaner company in 2006, and just started really just trying to help people. And I tried to get rich, like really tried to get rich. And that never works, right? And so I think it was like around 2010, I was just like, okay, God, I'm giving up. I'm just going to help people. I'm going to stop trying to make money, and I'm just going to go help people. And that is when my life just exploded in a positive way. When I finally gave up on trying to make money, and because profit will get in the way of serving, I think.
I agree.
And if you serve, the profit comes.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I told you a little bit before we started talking that I have worked my way up.
Yeah.
Nothing came easy for me. And I was a single mom at one point, actually a couple different times. I had a habitual habit of picking the wrong kind of men. And
My wife has the same problem.
I had a single parent a few times and raising 3 boys and trying to navigate that when they need a father and they have me. But I just stayed steady to what I was drawn to do. I got drawn into this business because my father had Alzheimer's disease. And I was literally, before my dad got Alzheimer's disease, and he had young onset, I was afraid of the elderly because I hadn't been around grandparents. And I was just like, I wasn't real comfortable being around elderly people. I'd never been around them. And he went into a memory care, and I got there, and I fell in love with all the people in the memory care when I would go visit, because sometimes he would sit and sometimes he didn't. And sometimes I was talking to the other residents at the memory care because he didn't remember me that day or he didn't recognize me as family, and somebody else wanted me to be their family. And 10 years later, I just always felt the seniors calling. My dad eventually passed away as a result of his disease. He was 67. He was diagnosed at 58, very young.
Yeah, my dad was 52.
I felt the housing crash hit. I had been a real estate agent for 8 years and found quite a bit of success with that. But then all of a sudden it just dried up one day. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And I came on board with this company as a marketing person is how I got started. And as I rose up through the ranks, and a lot of learning went on in many years, but eventually I've been sitting in the president role now the last 9 years. But when I got here to the president role, and there was quite a few years of learning in that role, but then I got to the top and I thought, well, now what? I think you think when you make this climb to success, you're going to somehow be fulfilled by the success.
Never.
And what I learned is now my husband and I, we personally have sober living homes, and we help people with recovery, and we provide a structured environment. And it's pretty much his work, but last year we moved out of our own home to provide a women's home because there was a need for it. And it just feels good to go out and be helping people. It gives you a whole new drive to the purpose of everything that you're doing.
So I'm a recovering addict. I'm open about that. Mine was gambling. I lost everything. I've been 25 years sober. In fact, I was in a casino last night. I was walking through a casino last night in Las Vegas. And I remember thinking just like, man, I was just proud. Like, I was just like, I could care less about this. It's not even a problem anymore.
Yeah.
And my wife even, she forgot that I was going to Vegas. She's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even check in on you. I was like, man, I didn't even think about it. But I have also found, in recovery, I'm still an addict. I'm just addicted to positive stuff, right? And for me, it's helping people. And so it's helping my clients, helping my employees. I, too, tend to focus, most of my employees tend to be guys that I call them second chance guys. I got a lot, especially on the hoarding side, like guys that have done significant time, like 20, but we call it a boat, like 20 years. Those are the guys that understand hoarding at the highest level because they understand isolation. They understand recovery. They understand that it can get better, but maybe not tomorrow. They understand the long timeline. And some of the best. I mean, I'll be honestly, Ronnie, the number 1 hoarding guy in the country. He's better than me because when I was off doing it on TV, he was helping people in the house. And Ronnie murdered a guy when we were 19, and he did 20 years. And I've seen him. He did his time. He did his full time. He did the crime. He did the time. Come back, and now I've seen him help more people in hoarding. But the long story of that is kind of what you're saying, which is for me, it's just like, okay, I am just going to get addicted to helping people. And once I did, it kind of like my life just exploded in a positive way.
Yeah, I bring that philosophy with me to the team. Yeah. We're there to the seniors come and live with us. Yeah. It's their last chapter of their life. We're in the, end of life business, and why not try to make it as positive as you possibly can?
Yep.
Let's just have fun, make it as positive as possible, and we do senior proms, and we do anything we can call the news.
I mean, you're doing it differently, right? Like, when are you still aware of that? Or you're definitely different than most communities. You're not trying to, and I say that in a proud, positive way. I mean, a lot of people talk about doing things differently, but you guys actually take action. And it sounds like you do it a ton. Is that something you really focus on, or it just comes up in a brainstorm and you're like, yeah, let's go for it? Like, what's the...
I think...
How intentional is it, I guess I should say?
I think if we can be if we just genuinely care about people and genuinely care about them having a good experience, the people will come. It's not so hard then. Smash. They're talking about, that's a marketing thing. They're talking about census and how to attract people to your communities and what you need to do. And our communities here we're rural Wisconsin. I grew up here, so I understand what rural Wisconsin looks like. It's teachers and farmers, and we are, in our culture here, we're just people that love each other, and we have this culture. Wisconsin does have a unique culture. It's cheese, Green Bay Packers, beer.
I passed 2 cheese shops coming here. On the highway.
And it's just, we enjoy interacting with each other, and I think it's just how I would want to be treated, and it's how I would want my dad. I think these are my family.
We tell everybody, this is someone's grandma.
Yeah.
Treat them as if it's yours.
Yeah.
That's like basically our mantra.
And now I have my mom is now living in one of our buildings. So when I see her number come up, like she's an expert. She's going to tell me exactly how it is and what's going on. Yeah. And that's been a really great experience because I get some insights from her perspective that I'm like, it changes how you think about business and do business. And so that's been really good. And at times I see her calling and I'm like, oh, this could be painful. But at the same time, I need to hear that because her feedback is going to impact the entire organization from my standpoint. And there's things, we're overseeing 31 locations. So there's things that we may be doing that is just timed out. Business changes. And there's been some of that, what we were doing may not be as effective now as it was 10 years ago. And so you have to relook at those things. But it's about the resident experience.
We actually sat down after her mom was admitted to one of our buildings and talked about, like, what can we do differently here? It started off as not being the best experience. And I'm like, okay, so how do we change that so your experience doesn't become everyone's experience?
Yeah, and we made some company-wide changes just based off of her admission. The very basic, the admission experience that my own family had.
Yeah, so my mom downsized 3 years ago, and that's the hardest move I can do, right? My own mom, and she did not hire me. She hired my friend. She chose not to use me. She goes, I go, Mom, I know a guy. And she's like, no, not like you, but like a real one. I go, Mom, I literally wrote the book on this entire industry. And she's like, no, you do it on TV. She's like, I think I'm going to hire Mike. And Mike's my best friend. Mike's on all the TV shows, the tall, bald guy on Legacy List. He does all the shows with me. He's my best friend. We've been doing this together for 15 years. He helped me move. He helped me downsize. And, but yeah, my mom hired him instead of hiring me. And so I was like, all right, why didn't you hire me, Mom? And she's like, honestly, you tell too many jokes. That's not my style. And she goes, I needed someone a little more dry. And she said, it just would have been really annoying for me. And I was like, you know what? That's honest feedback. And so it's funny now, as we're actually franchising Clutter Cleaner now. So we have 12 locations of Clutter Cleaner opening up in November. And now one of the things we do, and we're trying to match, it's like, okay, like on a scale like 1 to 10, how many jokes do you want? Because although it's right for a lot of our clients, it's not right for all of our clients. And so, yeah, it's funny you say that. Even my mom made me adjust how I do business. Yeah.
Hoarders, I really enjoyed that show.
Yeah.
And it was something I could relate to. I grew up, well, she's going to kill me for saying this, but my mother had hoarding tendencies when I was growing up, or she just was.
Well, age-wise, if you age-wise, some of that is she was the last kid of the Depression, too.
And when you're a kid, it does change you.
Absolutely.
It was a tough way to live. And when we moved her into the assisted living and then downsizing her home was extremely difficult, not only for her, but for us.
It's very hard for the adult children.
Very
your life was
difficult.
different because of it. You didn't have friends over as much.
Right.
There were significant differences in other kids' lives.
And
So, yeah.
She would go there. She would leave the assisted living. She was still driving and would go there and sit amongst the things when we weren't there and just, ruminate on what she was going to lose. And my frustration with her was, it's always about the things, Mom. Why is it always about the things? That's the adult daughter
Yeah.
who lived with it. Why is it always about the things? This is going to improve your life. You don't need this stuff. Why do you want it? And it was that same. So Hoarders was a way for me to understand the disease. Even though I had lived with it, I never really understood it.
I think for a lot of people, we put words behind the feelings. I mean, you understand when we started that show, it was not a part of the DSM-5. It was not even a recognized mental disorder.
We're Talking About It is brought to you by Our House Senior Living. Visit us at ourhouseseniorliving.com.
It was a subset of OCD.
Yes.
That's it. And people thought hoarders were lazy. They didn't think they were very intelligent. And I remember, probably the first 100 houses, I was like, man, these all tend to have the same trauma story. I was like, are we certain that trauma is not a part of this? And all the therapists I work with are like, no, the data says no. I'm like, my data says differently. We're not even questioning if they've been abused. It's like, what man and their family abused them? That's how specific and how many of these, we're seeing on the trauma side. And then, so I finally just went, I said, all right, I'm going to start asking the question, what was the trauma? And then I actually started taking pictures of all the piles. And so very quietly over 10 years, I actually created a system where I can actually tell you what the trauma is based on how the piles are stacked and what they hoard.
That is extremely
Yeah.
interesting. So tell me the difference in trauma between a dirty hoard and a clean hoard.
So I'll go extreme here. All right,
Okay.
since there's caregivers listening, I think we can do this. So when there's feasts, people are like, I love the houses with poop, man, and the dead cats, and I'll back it up. The biggest misunderstanding of hoarders is that they're lazy and not intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact opposite. They're brilliant. They're not smart. They're another level smart. For women, the careers tend to be teachers, nurses, and social workers.
Mm-hmm.
The men tend to be doctors, lawyers, and engineers. They're all very well educated. Most of them had really good jobs. For the women, they're think about that: teachers, nurses, social workers. Besides being underpaid, what do those three things have in common?
Social work.
They're caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
They're at the heart, they're caregivers. And so you'll notice with the female hoarders, they hoard stuff for other people. It's not for them. They're getting their happiness and self-worth by giving stuff away. The problem is, the more they do it, they get their happiness and self-worth by consuming the items and not actually giving them away. Men tend to hoard things for themselves. If you watch the TV show Hoarders that I was on, you would think that it's just 65-year-old white women with cats. And the cat thing is real because for cats, it's easy love. It's the most amount of love you receive from an animal with the least amount of effort. You don't actually have to take care of cats. Cats can live on their own for many years after you've stopped feeding. I mean, they're good. Cats are quite scavengers. But men hoard for themselves. And we found that it wasn't that men did. It actually, the numbers will tell you men hoard at a higher rate than women.
Really?
It's 51%, 50.9 to 49.1. But what it is that men aren't willing to go through the shame and embarrassment to clean up for the family. They'll take it with them to the grave. And so I used to always think, well, I really specialize in estate cleanouts. I would say that all the time. And it took me a while to realize it's not that I specialize in estate cleanouts. I just clean a lot of hoarders that are dudes. And we wouldn't get them until they died.
Yeah.
Right? And the women we would get midlife. And they were willing, and we have a rule, we won't clean the house unless they go to therapy. Because we absolutely now know from our, 20 years of data that if they go to therapy for the trauma, not for hoarding, if they go to deal with the death or the loss of a person or the divorce, whatever it is, empty home is even a pretty common thing now. We've got a lot of women that gave up. It's the last generation that gave up their careers for their children. And then their children, they raise their kids very successfully. And then their kids go away and get married and have kids and go to college and have a great career. And all of a sudden, these women are 55. They're at home. They gave up their career. Their husband's still super busy, and they're just sitting at home totally lost because they basically lost their purpose. Is that trauma? Absolutely, for some people. I mean, trauma is a very subjective thing, but that's become one of our biggest, really, trauma bases on hoarding now is just empty home. And it's fascinating. But when we went back and just said, okay, I lost my train of thought. What was I doing here? What were we saying?
The difference between a clean hoard and a dirty hoard.
So when you deal with the negative trauma, I mean, someone died. The story I always give there, I had one lady, like to truly understand trauma. I had one lady that she was young. I mean, she was in her 40s, but she had lost her husband and her son in Katrina. And they were in the house. They were in the lower 9th Ward. And so we got her 10 years later after Katrina. But I'll never forget, she said, we climbed up into the attic. The water was rising so fast. We were trying to kick a hole through the attic. And she goes, we were trying to get on the roof so we wouldn't die. And the water came so fast that it literally grabbed her husband and her son. They were holding on to the rafters, and it just grabbed them and washed them away. So she literally watched her husband and son wash away in the dark. And she goes, Matt, that's not what ruined me. She goes, the reality is, she goes, I don't know if they died or if they survived and chose not to contact me.
Oh, wow.
That's trauma.
Yes.
Like, I had never understood trauma at that level. So, to back all this up, real negative trauma, they will actually make the house so messy that no one will come in. So it's either a very large physical wall. We talk about walls all the time. It's literally a wall of like dense clothes because they are hiding on the other wall. They're hiding from the world. A lot of times you'll see feces like wiped around the door. They'll have diapers or like a lot of adult diapers or the used adult diapers here, or they'll wipe their own feces on the door. That is sexual abuse. Like they are trying to keep the world away from them. And I'll never forget the first time the lady, I could see it. She wouldn't let me in. She had poop. She had wiped her own poop all over the door frame. And everyone's like, even the cops brought us in. They're like, you got to learn teach us how to talk to this lady. Like, we can't even get in. Well, she opened the door for me, and I could see, I was like, oh. I was like, your kitchen looks great. I go, I just figured this whole thing out. She goes, what do you mean? I go, brilliant. She goes, what do you mean? Because remember, the rest of the world's telling her, you're horrible, you're gross, you're disgusting. I said, this poop around the door thing? I go, brilliant. I go, nobody's coming in this house. I go, I can see your kitchen, it's clean. And she just started laughing. She goes, all right, you can come in. And the rest of the world had just crapped on her for, you're horrible, you're disgusting, you're gross. She's protecting herself. And for her, we found out we couldn't have a male crew. We had to have an all-female crew. She had been sexually abused by both her father and her brother. And so when we finally started talking to her, I was like, hey, I think we're the wrong people for this job. I go, let me switch out. I go, get you a full female crew. And she's like, you don't mind? I go, no. I go, if that's what you need, that's what you need. And she was like, well, that was easy. And I go, yeah, communication's a crazy thing. But like, you really have to understand the trauma. For us, if they go to therapy, we have a 60% success rate on cleanouts. So right around 60%. If they don't go to therapy, it's 100% failure.
Wow.
Like guaranteed.
So insightful.
So the math tells us if you don't go to therapy, don't clean the house. So we think it's unethical to actually clean the house if the person's alive without them going to therapy first.
This is information that we could really use in our organization because we have residents that hoard. We're dealing with hoarding tendencies that even in their room or their apartment, within our buildings.
Well, sometimes it's a control thing too, right?
Yeah.
If they were forced to come, not by y'all, but by family, you will see less hoarding for someone that chooses to enter. And the more they have to give up, the more they hoard, by far. So if they're rooming into a roommate situation where they went from a 2,500 square foot home, they were in for 50 years, and now they have a locker. Right, you're going to see some increased hoarding.
Yes,
because they lost their license, they lost their family, they sometimes lost a family member. I mean, you think about everything they've lost in the last 5 years. So yeah, that's why they're taking your ketchup packets and I mean, like they're taking all the creamers, they're taking all the ketchup packets, they're taking everything out of the food because they want to have something that's theirs. We've actually even started going to some of our clients. We started going to, like, we realized the men just really needed appreciation. And so they would hoard stuff because they wanted to be in control of something. And so we started doing like a kid's to-do list. And we'd give them gold stars. Like, you got up, you brushed your teeth, we gave them a gold star. You know, you got showered today, we gave them a gold star. You went and had breakfast, we gave them a gold star. And you would see these guys actually caring less about the stuff because they were getting appreciated for what they were actually doing in real life.
Very insightful.
Yeah. Oh, it's shocking. So, and I don't want to go, I could go all day on the hoarding, but I will say one other thing. Most hoarders are they're gonna either live in we call it a fake future or a perfect past. So you hear all these grandiose stories. My grandfather was on the Mayflower and he came over from England, and you're like, we're missing like 250 years in that story. Like, it doesn't add up. But like, he's saying it as it's fact, you know. And they build up this incredible, obviously fake past, but it's perfect, and we call it the perfect past. Or they live in this fake future. I'm going to create a museum, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and they're hoarding all this stuff to do something in the future. And so it's either the perfect past or the fake future. But what they're not doing is living in the now. They're avoiding right now. And you can literally live for 10 years talking about the past or the future and never actually live in the now. And we found our hoarders they were experts at that. They could literally make 5 years go by without actually living in the now. And I finally said, okay, well, what's the problem about now? It's like, oh yeah, now really sucks. They just lost their house. They just lost their partner. They just lost the ability to drive. They can't go to church anymore. They have new food all of a sudden. Like, they lost everything. And it's like, oh yeah, no wonder they're talking about all that other stuff. And it was like, okay, how do we get them ingrained in now? And that's how we actually ended up doing more of the legacy list stuff, because I was like, okay, how can we do these really turbo fast memory bonding, but actually still celebrating those things, but keeping it to 3 to 5 minutes?
That's great.
So it sounds like my legacy list is just some neat little thing I came up with one day, but there's a lot of thought behind it, you know, and there's a lot of structure behind it, because we want people to be able to really, truly still celebrate the past, but spend more time living in the now and moving forward.
Right. So that leads us into what you're doing with the Legacy List show. And how many seasons are you into that now?
We're in 5 seasons on Legacy List. And for those listeners, Legacy List is just, from that show, it's basically just the top 5 items in your house. And we get to hear the stories. Like, the one I always talk about is we had a lady, we found a 44-star flag in her attic.
Wow.
And I was like, where'd you get this? She goes, I don't know. I was hoping you could help me figure it out. She goes, it was in my grandfather's trunk. And we ended up finding out her great-grandfather was a train conductor the day Utah became a state, 1889. And so he took that flag off the train and put it in a trunk in his house, and we found it, 130 years later, which is crazy, you know. But we were able to do a little bit of research and find those stories. And so for now, it's obviously her biggest legacy list item. But she needed a little help even knowing the full story. But most clients either need help figuring out the story, or they just can't find the item. It's always the missing wedding ring.
Oh,
when we clean the house, we always find the wedding ring they lost 30 years ago. I think my favorite one was this one guy. He was like, hey, my grandpa swore that he met my grandma on the boat to Ellis Island. We think he's full of it. We don't think it's a true story. And he goes, is there any way to find out? I go, actually, yeah, that's really easy. We can find out the boat records going on and then going off. And so sure enough, I call Ellis Island. They're like, it'll take us 10 minutes. Yeah, give us the names. And so we get the birth names of the mom, and it was in the Bahamas. And we ended up finding out, indeed, they got on the boat a day apart. She got on the boat with her mom. He got on a day later. And then they got off the boat together.
Really?
They walked off together. And he was like, we were to show him the documents, and he was like,
mystery solved.
Mystery solved. He's like, that's super cool. So some people, the legacy list is just finding out. Like, some people just want to know if the stories are true, you know, and like actually finding history to back it up.
How do you get on the show? If you're a family and you're cleaning out a house.
If you want to be on the show and you think so it's not really about financially valuable stuff. It's do you have any cool stories? If you like to tell stories, and a lot of it's just timing, because we film in the summer. I'm old now. I got to do it when my kids are out of school so they can come with me. My kids get to come and actually be on the cleanup crew. And so one of the things is, like, you basically got to be cleaning in June and July. Like, that's my window. And so you've got to be ready to do the clean out then. And then you got to be willing to work for 3 days straight. I mean, it's 3 days straight, 12-hour days. And that's not for everybody.
And I see you're like going all over, because when I was watching the show.
Oh, everywhere. Yeah.
You were in Chicago and
Yeah,
then
this summer
Michigan.
this summer we started in Portland, Oregon, right at the end of the Oregon Trail. Like literally, we were like we could see the end of the Oregon Trail from this guy's house, and then we drove all the way down to San Diego, and then went to New Orleans, and then went from Washington D.C. all the way up to Portland, Maine. So this summer we literally did Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and it was awesome. We need some more Midwest stories, I will tell you. The Midwest is definitely underrepresented, and I think the reason why is we tend to y'all tend to hold on to homes longer, and so we get three generations or four generations in the same home, and so it's funny. It's definitely a Midwestern thing where it's like, you know, on the coast, it's like, okay, grandma dies, family comes in, they clean the house out, kids get what they want, and then they sell the house. But in the Midwest, it's like, nope. Grandma died. A couple kids took a few things. Like 80% of the stuff is in the house, and then someone new moves into the house, and their stuff goes on top of that. And so when we get into like specifically, like basically Chicago to like Nebraska, we often it's like an archaeological dig. It'll be like, okay, well, whose is this? Oh, that was my great aunt's. Oh, that was my grandma's on my dad's side, and it's all in one room. And so you really do need someone in the family to be able to tell us whose piles are where, because the basement might have 5 generations in it.
Yes.
And so it's a lot harder to share the stories because the stories get lost over time.
We just bought a house that we made a sober living, but it had been owned by the family for 75 years. And the daughter, her father, passed away when he was 101. And so we told her, and the house was full, just packed full. And we told her, because her dad, living to 101, she was in her 70s. We told her that she could leave whatever she wanted in the house.
His baby girl was 72.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we told her you could leave whatever you want in the house to just make it easier. It was in this great location that we knew would be great for recoveries. So our motivation just to make the offer sweet. But it reminded me of an episode that I watched of the Legacy List, because as we took, they left pictures on the wall and we took them off, there was little tags on it to say, this was painted by Aunt whoever in this year.
I love it.
And so we had so much fun going through the house and finding these treasures that the family, I'm sure they took everything of value,
Yeah.
but there was still one of his flight pants, because he was in World War II,
Yeah.
and he was a bomber pilot. And he had been shot down and then held captive in Germany for 9 months. And so, knowing that history, I looked him up, and so some of his there was like his military blanket was still there. They had taken, of course, the things that were important to them, but just awesome.
We
stuff.
had a guy that was he was in Vietnam, prisoner POW for 7 years with John McCain. He was like in the bunkhouse with John McCain for like 6 years, and he's telling us the story. And you really have to pry. I mean, the guys that actually saw real action don't talk at all, and you have to pry it out of them. And this guy told us some stuff, and his daughter finally said like he doesn't want to talk about it. And so we look him up, and it's like all of it was true. It's crazy. Like first thing we looked up, and there's a picture of him and John McCain at their wedding, and you're like, oh my God, that was like this guy's like real history. But I will say this: every family, what we've learned at Legacy List is we can do that show in any house in the country. Everybody has an interesting story. You don't think it's interesting, right? But I'm telling you, the rest of the world, we all think your story is interesting. And so I tell everybody, like, just start sharing your stories. Just start telling them, because if you pick 3 or 4 items, and you can do it on the show or not, but in real life, if you pick 5 items and you start sharing it with your family, you'll be amazed what people truly want to hear and they want to start keeping the items. Like everybody thinks nobody wants your stuff. In fact, that's what I tried to call my book originally. Nobody wants your stuff. And AARP wouldn't let me call it that. And so I ended up going to keep the memories loose of the stuff. But at the end of the day, I found people do want your stuff. It's just not that. It's not the dining room. It's other stuff.
It's not the china cabinet
It's not the china
anymore.
cabinet. Nope, it's not the brown furniture. It's not the china. It's not the silver. It's usually, like a cool purse or a cool jacket. Or, I mean, God, when I started, you couldn't get rid of fur coats. And now that's like the first thing the granddaughters want is the fur coats.
Yes.
Vintage now is from the 80s, which is crazy to me.
That's crazy
right?
to me too, because
I mean, what is it? Between now and the 80s is actually a greater distance than the 80s to World War II. Like, that's crazy.
it is crazy.
But that's the math of it.
That's where we're at right now. So tell me a little bit about your business that you said you're franchising.
Yeah, so Clutter Cleaner, our business, we actually start franchising this year in 2024. We just found a great need. People really deeply want us to clean up their houses, and we realized that franchising was the way to do it because it needed to be local. It needs to be a local person. Downsizing and estate cleanout is a very local thing.
So your franchises gives them a
business in a box, man. Business in a box. Here's how you run
do
it.
it.
We're going to send you all these leads. You've got all these national accounts. You're going to see our brand on all my TV shows. And I mean, I get 10 leads a day still from Hoarders, like every day, just from being on Netflix. And now I didn't make, TV is not as lucrative as people think. I mean, this is a funny story. When they offered me Hoarders, they were like, it's $300. And I was so excited. I go, I'll take it. And I found out like 5 years later, they were going to say a day. But I said yes to $300. So the first 2 seasons of Hoarders, I only got $300 an episode. And I found out I could have been making like $5,000 an episode and I didn't know. And I literally did it for $300. But that's why I ended up getting on every episode because I was so cheap. And but it ended up being probably the best mistake of my life. I mean, by the time that show aired, I was like the guy from Hoarders,
Well, now, that's called growth, right? You learn some lessons.
I make $350 an episode now. It's pretty nice. Yeah. I've really matured over 17 years. I would say that with Clutter Cleaner, what we really love is we're able to put caregivers in the homes that are local and they care about it. I think a lot like your businesses. I mean, we always say we're softball jersey business, right? Like our business grows. Well, I was just at Smash, that marketing conference, and there was like a whole section on AI, and I'm like, I'm good, man. This is a referral business. I mean, I know there's technology that can help us grow, but at the end of the day, people need us because they need help. They ask someone in their community, do you know anyone that can help me with this? And hopefully we've done such a good job in the community that person will say, oh yeah, you should call Clutter Cleaner. They're great. And then they go, oh, that's the guy from Hoarders. Yeah, I know that guy too, but that should be secondary. It shouldn't be primary, right? At the end of the day, it's a service business, and if we do a really, really good job, we'll always be busy. And,
I agree.
So yeah, we love it. We're blowing up. We're trying. Actually, we had about 50 people request buying a franchise, and we're just holding it to 15 the first year. We don't want to overgrow. You could sell so many and then not support not really do a good job helping people, and then everyone's out of business.
So we talked a little bit before, and to go back to hoarding a little bit, we talked a little bit about an article that we came across, and this was it was out of Illinois, and a woman lost her husband, and it was a hoarding situation, and they later found him in the home several months later. I believe it was 9 months later.
So I'm going to read a comment from this story, which is fun. This is only I would know this. This is crazy. So the county's chief deputy coroner said police described the residence as a hoarder home, quote unquote. While searching the house, police noticed a sewer-like odor inside the residence. That's actually not the dead body, believe it or not. A dead body has a very distinct odor. If you know what that odor is, that would be the cats. That is the sewer-like smell. It's cat pee. It's methane. It's cat pee. So this is something I learned about cats, that cats, they just want to eat you. Like, that's it. Cats are hungry. They're scavengers. They're wild animals. And so when your cat comes up to you and is like giving you smooches and love, it's not giving you love. It's trying to smell if you're breathing or not. Because if you're not breathing, it's going to eat you.
That's great.
Like, that is what cats do. And I will tell you that because I used to do a lot of crime scene cleanups before I did a lot of hoarding. And when there were a lot of cats in the house, it was a really easy cleanup. Because the cats will just lick a body clean. I mean, they'll eat a decomposing body to the bone.
Really?
And you'll be this like fat cat that looks like Garfield, just licking its lips, and it's got this like super long glowing hair, and you're like, oh my God, that cat just ate an entire body. And like, that's what cats do in those situations. I don't know why I'm telling you that story. I just think it was always fascinating. Like, we'd be like, yes, there's a cat in here. And it would just be like so easy. We get to bill the same amount of money. So it was like, we'd be like, God, if every like decomposed body had a cat in it, it'd be like the easiest business in the world. But the weirdest body one we ever had it's not the one we were talking about off camera. We got brought in to do one in Vegas. They put in the cadaver dogs, and they couldn't find into a hoarding situation, and they could not find the body. And the dogs were not like they were not marking where the body was. And so they brought us in as experts to say, okay, where you can read a hoarded home, like we know the body's in here. It's got to be. And it was a really badly hoarded home, like with cats and same thing, methane. I mean, the smell is so. It smells like when when you leave like mustard in the fridge like 10 years too long, right? And it gets really just citrusy and very spongy. It smells like that and like used kids' diapers, right? Like it's very sweet and odorous. That's really what it smells. Anyway, I walked in the house and you can just tell by the piles, and I was like, oh, he's got to be in the bathroom. He's got to be in the bathroom because bathroom's the first room that fills up in a hoarded house. Always, they'll hang clothes on the curtain, and then that blocks off the shower, and then the shower becomes a storage unit. And there were paths everywhere except the bathroom, like goat trails. And I was like, she's respected all these walking trails. Like, oh, he's got to be in the bathroom. So we get in there, and sure enough, we're in there 20 minutes, and we're just slowly peeling away like an onion the bathroom pile, and it's like 5 feet high, and we get it down to like 2, and I'm down on my knees, and I go up, and I can feel a skull. I'm like, it's either a skull or like it's a rock, and I'm like, but it's probably the skull, and it had completely decayed. And it was, and we pulled it out, and she had rolled the guy up in a shower curtain. And she was like, oh, that's where I put him. Like, she had, like, lost her keys. And she was like, oh, yeah. Now, this lady obviously had some mental issues. But the cops couldn't find it. The cadaver dogs couldn't find it.
She had killed the guy, or he
No, he just died. So she just rolled it up. And
put him in the
bathroom. And she just, I think ADHD got her best of her. And then, like, all of a sudden, she forgot where she put him. And she obviously had some mental issues, but it was not murder. It was not
crazy.
It was just literally, yeah, no, it was. He had been, probably that body had been there like 5 years.
I mean, Matt,
so fully decomposed. Yeah.
I have learned some very interesting things.
Yeah, I don't know if any of it's useful to anybody, but they're interesting stories. So I have a legacy. I'll say, if we get back to legacy, I definitely have a lot of legacies. Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, tell me about your wife and how does she embrace this career and life experience
you're
of
gonna
yours?
Laugh. So obviously anyone that's married to me has to be able to handle storytelling. My wife only watched one episode of Hoarders. She saw it and she's like, not for me.
There it is.
And so she's never seen any episodes. And the one she saw was like the nicest, sweetest episode. It was this guy that these 3 brothers, and they understood TV. So it was called Three Amigos. It was 3 brothers, and they all lived in Boston, and they all were like these extreme hoarders. We were pitched as extreme hoarders, and we get there, and the first hoarder wouldn't let us in the door, and he kicked us out like really quickly. We didn't even have time to get in a fight with the guy, and I was just like, that's odd. And then the next one, his wife, she as soon as we get there, she's like, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack. She calls the ambulance, and they leave, and he's just like, I'm too upset. And we were there for like 10 days, and each guy was going to get 3 days. And so we had like 9 days to clean the other brother's house. And I realized like on day 2, I was like, these dudes totally duped us. They just faked to get out. I mean, the first day we got out of the other 2 houses, and they lied to us. They didn't want anybody to clean their houses. They just wanted us to be there for their brother. And there was these 2 like just hardcore Boston like asshole guys, And then you're like, oh my God, they're the sweetest guys in the world. They faked all of this just so we could clean their brother's house. And we did. And so it'd be the sweetest, it was the sweetest episode. So my wife saw that. My wife is a pretty well-known minimalist. In fact, I met her because I read her book. She had written a book called Minimalism for Families, and it changed my life. I read the book. One of my sons has a processing disorder, and he can't do well with textures and socks. Getting ready is a nightmare for him. And I was a young single dad, kind of like very similar to your story. Full-time dad, single dad. I had full custody of my kids, and I was doing my business, but still trying to be a full-time dad. And my son and I couldn't get him ready. And so everybody felt bad for me. So they would give me all the hand-me-downs in the neighborhood. So I had, not only do I have my son's hand-me-downs, but I had every other boy mom in the neighborhood is giving me all the things. So my middle son, who has processing disorder, he happened to have the biggest closet. So all of the clothes were in his closet. And so I went online. I don't know what to do. Anybody have ideas? And everyone said, read this book, Minimalism for Families. And I ended up reading the book, and it just said, you've got too many choices. Get rid of everything. Like, just have 5 shirts, 5 shorts, 5 socks, 5 underwear. That's it. So we literally donated, like 20 boxes of clothes got rid of everything, all the hand-me-downs, all the extra seasons, all of it. And the next morning, my son comes in, he's like, Dad, look. And he wakes me up. And we used to fight in the morning because I couldn't get him to put socks on. He's like, Dad, I'm ready. Like, look at me. And he was so happy. So I went online to thank this old lady that wrote the book. I assumed it was some 75-year-old lady. And it ended up being this very beautiful young woman. And I was like, holy crap. And she was a single mom of 4 kids. And so we started talking professionally. And then she showed up at my TED Talk and surprised me at my TED Talk. And we ended up falling in love. And now we live in Atlanta, have 7 kids together. They all live with us. And but she is a hardcore minimalist. We are hardcore minimalists. I mean, our kids were raised as minimalists. So we have no walk-in closets anywhere in our house. And I have 5 shirts, 2 pair of pants. I do have 30 pair of shoes, but we all have 4x8. We have a 4x8 locker. Everyone does in the house. We have a big locker room when you walk in the house. And so whatever you want to keep, it's got to fit in that 4x8 locker. And if it doesn't, it
That's
doesn't
a
fit in
great
the house.
story.
So we have 9 people. We have 10 cups, 10 plates. We don't have anything. And
What's
I
the
love
name
it.
of her book?
Minimalism for Families. Her Instagram is Raising Simple. You can see
Okay.
our whole house in there. It's pretty crazy.
I'm gonna have to-
She's much more famous than I am on online, and she lets me know that often. But yeah, so she watched 1 episode. She loves the legacy side of this. In fact, we just did a class. We just taught a class together on mementos. How do you get rid of the keepsakes and mementos? So it's been actually kind of funny. We've never taught together until just last weekend. We taught our first class together, and so we both are kind of the experts in our field. And it's been very interesting for us to back off a little bit and let the other one teach. But it's been fun. And go ahead.
It sounds like the perfect pairing.
It is. I mean, she's, the joke is the guy from Hoarders is hoarding kids. We have 7 kids is tough, man. And we love it. But the other joke is, they're like, oh, it's like the Brady Bunch. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm Alice. I do all the cleaning because I don't think anybody can do it the right way. And then I get mad when they don't help me, right? And then I'm like, well, you're doing it the wrong way. I'm doing stuff. So it's funny. We're really good at teaching stuff, but we're still, as a couple, we're learning still. How to it's a constant effort to get the kids involved and get everybody, really. But I will say minimalism has saved us. We would not be able to have
Simplifies life.
Oh
Correct?
my God. There's, our whole thing is there's more with less. But even to the point where we've designed our yard, our yard has no uptake, no upkeep. Even our yard, we have rocks, a pool, rocks, and turf. So there's no upkeep in the yard, and all the plants are self perennial. So everything we do is about having time with our family, not stuff. And so it actually, ironically, our house and our life is really kind of an exclamation point of everything we teach. And we don't have any stuff. And quite honestly, we couldn't afford it if we did. We're 9 people is tough, and we spend all of our money is spent on food and experiences, and we love it.
Well, Matt, it sure has been a pleasure to sit down and talk with you and get to know you, and a wealth of information and knowledge, and I've learned things.
I don't know if I should say you're welcome on some of these things.
I love it.
Well,
I think it's great.
I want to appreciate what you guys are doing. You're doing it differently. You really are. Keep doing
Appreciate
it differently
that.
because I know you're seeing it in the quality of care, and I would guess most importantly in the longevity of your employees.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're keeping employees a lot longer than anyone else in the industry.
Yeah, we're maintaining 600 employees.
Yeah.
We maintain our employee
That's
count,
awesome.
and you go through phases. People come and go. That's okay. But we've been able. We do it all without staffing agency.
That's so that you're now proving.
Yeah.
That's insane, y'all. That's incredible not to have to do a staffing agency.
Yeah, we haven't done staffing.
So your employees
agency
are
in,
happy.
2 years, probably 2 or 3 years. What we learned from staffing agency is when they come in from an outside agency, they just
There's no skin in the game. They don't care.
and they contaminate your employees because they're like, oh, we're making this much, and
Oh,
a lot of times more than what you're paying your own people, and then
and they're half the effort. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, we started getting rid of agency back in 2017. That's actually how I started. I started off by working the floor, and I traveled. They'd tell me where to go, and I went, and I worked all the shifts. So
What the industry, in my opinion, what the industry doesn't want to recognize or what they don't want to come out and say is that staffing agency is a problem. And it is a problem.
It absolutely is.
I recognized it as a problem, and this wasn't going to work for us. You have people coming in, they're not giving quality care because, like you said, I mean, no, don't get me wrong, there can be good caregivers, their staffing agency, but they don't know your residents. Your residents don't know them, and they come in, and then the good people that you do have, it's just...
It's the same thing as travel nursing.
Yeah.
The travel nursing model just blew up in the last 2 years for the exact same thing.
Yeah, but the industry doesn't want to say that because there's so many people that are using agency.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using agency because they're still trying to hire the same way that they did pre-pandemic. And things have changed.
It's just different. Placement's
Yeah.
the same. I know we got into here. The placement's the same thing. We're seeing in placement. You're seeing that go away. And people
we
are
just
getting away from
decided-
placement. Yeah.
It wasn't good for the business. It's not good for the residents. And, it's my job to recognize that and make changes as we need to make.
All right, we'll end on this. I know we got to wrap. I'm
Yep.
going to ask you a question for
Sure.
me. I am now franchising a new business. I'm going to have 15 locations by Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
In 1 minute or less, what's your best advice to me as a business owner?
I would say that trust but verify.
Yes.
And I would say to ask for feedback regularly. I ask my team for feedback. They are, they are my experts. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
And I definitely am always trying to look ahead at where the industry is going, where are things trending. And I don't necessarily, sometimes I look at outside industry, things outside of my business to determine what we can maybe do inside of our business. And because assisted living or senior living in general was a bit behind the 8 ball, there wasn't a lot of, I want to do what they're doing. We kind of had to pave our own way and figure out what can we do that's going to make us different. We want to be different. So figure out how to make your business different. Always making your business different. What's that going to look like? And having a good strategy, and that's part of how can we be different. There might be a lot, there's 2 men in a truck, and I'm just throwing some other names out there, but how can you differentiate yourself, and what can you do that kind of might seem a little crazy and wild, but you just got to go
That's the best way to stand out.
You just got to go for it, because you know what? If it doesn't work, what do? You just change it.
Yeah.
You just change and do something different. And I think there's so many people that are afraid to fail that they don't want to make changes
people
when they
always
really
say,
should be.
how did I get so good at this? And I'm like, dude, I did it the wrong way the first 10 years. Like, I didn't do everything I do now, I didn't do any of this until probably year 8. Other than, we're a hugging company. We do a lot of hugs. And people think that's weird, but that's what we do. We're huggers.
Of course. Well, we said we were going to talk about it, and we did with Matt Paxton. Again, a pleasure to have you here today and talk with us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. You can find the We're Talking About It podcast on YouTube, YouTube Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.